Hi, thank you for all your comments on all my other videos there. This video, which is going to be based on flare-up management, is based on a request from one of my viewers who's asked for a little bit more advice and a video on what are the exact skills of RAD, relaxation, activities and distraction, that I talk about in my book, has a way of managing flare-ups and has a toolkit that you need to have in order to manage a flare-up of your chronic pain. So in this video, I'm going to be going specifically into 5 particular examples of various relaxation approaches, activity-based approaches, and finally some distraction-based techniques. And you can personalize and choose something that works for you, continue to practice it, and then make it as part of your toolkit so that when you do need it, it is readily available, easily doable, and quickly accessible. So first, let's dive into the relaxation approaches. Now, effectively, what we are doing during a flare-up management is to look at any kind of activity or an approach that is about relaxing and calming the nervous system. So the 5 relaxation-based examples that you could consider looking into. The first one, of course, is deep breathing or sort of diaphragmatic breathing techniques. The second approach is looking at sort of guided imagery or visualization approaches. The third one is going to be aromatherapy. The fourth is going to be progressive muscle relaxation based techniques. And finally, the last one is mindfulness based activity, whether that's meditation. So going for the first one, deep breathing or sort of diaphragmatic breathing. There are many variations of this on the net and from different other experts talking about it. But the simple principle is you need to have your time out for breathing. So breathing out or exhalation needs to be longer than your inhalation. Primarily because when you're in pain or when you're stressed and you're having a flare-up, you end up taking shorter breaths, so you breathe in more but do not give enough time for breathing out or exhalation. So any approach wherein you can have a longer exhalation time is going to be useful. My suggestion is generally what's called the 3-4-5 technique. So you breathe in for 3 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, and you then breathe out for 5 seconds. The second way of doing this is the 5-5-5. So you can breathe in for 5, hold for 5 seconds, and breathe out for 5 seconds. If you can see what happens here, for example, if you take the 3-4-5 approach, if you were to breathe in for 3 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, and breathe out for 5 seconds, you've effectively taken 12 seconds to do one breath. That means in 1 minute, you have taken only 5 breaths. That is automatically so much lower than even your usual breathing rate of 12 breaths per minute. And that's very important because when you can lower your breathing rate below 10, what you're automatically indicating to your brain, to your nervous system, is you're activating the parasympathetic, the rest and digest system, and in some ways you're reassuring the brain that it is safe. And that is what the nervous system will require to start calming down. So that's how deep breathing works in this format. The second kind of approach is called progressive muscle relaxation. Now, progressive muscle relaxation is another relaxation approach wherein you are lying down and then you are then taking a step-by-step approach to tightening and relaxing groups of muscles starting from your head all the way down to your feet, or you could start from your feet and come up to your head. The choice is yours, but again, the whole process is you tighten the muscle and then you relax, and this is what's called progressive muscle relaxation. The third is mindfulness-based meditation approaches. I think the whole purpose around this kind of relaxation technique is to just be a little bit more mindful and being aware of your present moment and where you are. You may choose to meditate in the sense of staying still and just focusing on your breathing, Or you could be doing something that is a little bit more of a mindful activity, whether that's walking, whether that's gently walking about in your room or outside, but that is all part of doing something with attention to your present moment rather than letting your thoughts waver about. That's another relaxation technique. The fourth relaxation technique that goes about is the use of aromatherapy or any such things that momently activate your smell, or those kind of touch-based approaches which just again give your system a way to relax or calm down. The final relaxation example that I'm going to give in this video is going to be guided imagery, or what we call visualization. This is something that's very commonly done in many other industries and fields and contexts like athletics or performance. But in this context of pain management and a flare-up management, you're essentially trying to visualize something that's more pleasant, and you could do that with your eyes closed or while being a part of a mindful approach there. I hope these are good examples of sort of relaxation-based approaches. Of course, there are many other techniques that are described. The main aim is to find one or two such relaxation-based approaches and use them in your toolkit and build it up as part of your toolkit. Hi, I love receiving your comments, so please keep commenting and telling me and giving me new ideas of what videos you'd like to hear and what information you'd want to know. Thanks for watching so far, and I'm hoping that you're finding this information helpful. Don't forget to hit the like button to please the YouTube gods, and please do subscribe to my channel so that you can be the first to receive information about when new videos keep dropping in. Next, we come on to sort of activity-based approaches to flare-up management. So 5 examples of activities that I'm going to suggest are pacing, hydrotherapy or water-based approaches, gentle walks, stretches or a gentle yoga practice, and finally, use of small resistance bands or small weights. Firstly, we'll come to the stretches and yoga. These are often the most useful approaches in terms of activity to manage your flare-up. The aim is to gently stretch that area of the body if possible, or to use a particular kind of yoga posture, for example, a cat camel or a child's pose. These are things you can Google or look up there. They are simple to do, they are safe to do in most instances of flare-up, and will just be a gentle activity. What that does is again allows for a little bit of blood flow to various muscle groups, and that muscle group will then relax as more blood flows goes there, because when you're in pain, your muscles will go into a protective spasm, and different muscle groups can stay in different periods of tightness, worsening the pain for a variety of reasons. So using a stretch or a gentle yoga posture will at least improve the blood flow, stretch the muscle, and that will allow for some relaxation. So that is what we are trying to achieve with this kind of activity-based approach. The second one, of course, is very commonly used in all forms of pain management, which is pacing, or sort of using a gradation in your activity. Now, pacing by itself feels like it's very simple to do, but it's often a very hard skill to practice and to get good at. The main purpose of pacing is to find your limit and to know and develop that over time. And then every time you have reached that limit there, to see whether you can just extend or push it by another 10%. This is often, sometimes you might start with the lowest amount of activity, and that can be just a gentle walk around the room. But that is what pacing is all about, to find your limit, to stay within it for some time, and then slowly push the envelope a little bit there. The third kind of activity-based approach is the way of looking at small weights or resistance bands. Now, this might be useful for you if you're at home and having a flare-up. These are just various ways of managing it, and essentially when you do these kind of movement-based approaches, they have a double effect. They not only increase the blood flow, but they also provide a bit of distraction because you're doing some activity. So you're able to process, and the brain is able to process whatever adrenaline that has been built up and causing spasm. That is then allowed to be processed when you do some kind of movement-based approach. The last two techniques, both of which involve some kind of short walks. If you can go out, part of it is the way of sort of doing this activity in nature. And the last one is hydrotherapy, where you use water to do some of these movements within water. Now, obviously, this can be a bathtub itself, or it can be a warm shower. The aim is just to be able to use the effect of water, whether the hot or cold water, to allow then your muscles to move. Usually in this situation, hot water in a bathtub would be a good way to deploy your flare-up techniques. Trying to move it against when there is less gravity when you're in water is a good way to use this activity-based approach. Finally, we come to the distraction-based techniques that you can use for flare-up management. 5 examples that I'm going to give for distraction-based techniques. One include any kind of hobbies that involve a repetitive movement, so use playing an instrument or knitting. The second one is going to be journaling or expressive writing, sketching. The third distraction-based technique can be listening to music. The fourth is using sort of puzzles or games or teasers, brain teasers. And the fifth, most importantly, is social connection. Firstly, the purpose of these distraction-based techniques is essentially to literally distract from the flare-up of pain that's happening. But when you pursue a hobby, for example, knitting or even playing an instrument, it's about distracting yourself in such a way that you get into a flow by focusing on that. So if you're doing an activity that forces you to concentrate, like knitting or playing an instrument, then you are actually using a different set of neural circuits. So therefore, the circuits that are processing the emotion that's led to the flare-up is useless. And that is what is happening in the brain at that level when you use a distraction technique with a movement-based approach. The same works for the second distraction technique, which is journaling or some form of creative outlet such as sketching. All of these are repetitive movements that you do, and even if that means watercolor or doing this kind of distraction, means that your brain is using a different set of circuits when you're writing or journaling or sketching, because that will then ensure that the brain does not then receive as much of the signals from the emotion processing center. So that's the purpose of this kind of distraction-based approach. Listening to music, listening to podcasts, listening to some kind of audio transmission that then uses the auditory circuits to bring about a distraction is another very commonly used approach. A fourth approach is the use of brain sort of teasers or puzzles or games. This works is a different way, just uses a different set of cognitive circuits in the brain rather than the emotion processing circuits. Finally, the most important sometimes is social connection. Just reaching out, making a phone call, having a chat with a friend or a family member can often be a very effective distraction technique. And you have the double effect of just getting that social connection, which we know is so important there. So hopefully in this video, we've covered about 5 examples of relaxation-based approaches, 5 examples for activity-based approaches, 5 examples of distraction-based techniques. What I said, and this is so important, is that you have to find a combination of this that is personalized and useful to you and feels safe for you to do. You need to find a way to repeatedly practice it and be consistent with it when you're not having a flare-up, so that when you do have the flare-up, you can deploy it quickly and it comes naturally to you, rather than trying to learn it new when you're in the middle of flare-up. That's going to be very difficult to do. And lastly, in all of this, is always useful to have a little bit of accountability or support in the early phases when you're practicing these skills to find the one that works for you as you're building your toolkit. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it of value. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel and click on the bell button to be notified when the next video comes along.